Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and in Yirtz Hashem today we will be learning Daf Peites Amid Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on Peites Amid Aleph, 3 lines off the top, end of the line, Siman Shin Beis Sif Yud. Our learning should be a schus refuah shalema for Rachel Shavo Basitel Freda, Meshemei Ben Esther Fradel, Tzvi Ben Leah Miriam, Chavadasa Bas Rezel Serel, Dvar Bas Shoshabina, Rivka Bas Shira Leah, and Yitzchak Ben Tzion Ben Dusha. They should have refuah shalema b'sark shar chayle Yisrael. Our learning should also be a schus. The Rabban Shalom should watch over all of our brothers and sisters who find themselves in harm's way. B'chol makom shehem. So here in Siman Shin Beis, we have been discussing the halachas of melabain. Now, we spoke out earlier in the Siman that melabain, whitening or bleaching fabric, is one of the lamites malachis, one of the avos malachis. A tilda of melabain is the malacha of kibus, what we call laundering, washing a beged. That is what we have been discussing over here. Now, in Siman Tes, we spoke at length about the rule that was introduced to us first by the Mishnah Berurah in his Hakdama to Sif Tes and Sif Yud. We saw it in the Mechaber, the rule that when it comes to fabric, we say shriyasan, who the exact phraseology sometimes slips my mind, that shriyasan hi kibusan. Shriyasan, soaking a fabric, hi kibusam. That is part and parcel of laundering a fabric, because we all know that when you have a fabric that's dirty and you soak it in water, the water has the effect of helping to lift the stain off of the fabric, to get it out, to release it from between the fibers of the fabric. So when it comes to a beged, when it comes to fabric, we say shriyasai zuhi kibusai. Soaking it equals laundering it. Having said that, we saw in the Ramah in Sif Tes 2 very different opinions. We had the Deir Rishayna, the first opinion brought down by the Ramah, that when it comes to this rule of shriyasai zeh kibusai, that soaking is akin to laundering, said the Ramah, there's one opinion that says that's only true when you're dealing with fabric that actually has a stain. If it has a stain, if it has dirt on it, then we could say shriyasan zui kibusan, that by soaking it, you're doing kibus, because it has dirt, it has a stain. When you soak it, you're going to loosen up the dirt, you're going to help remove the dirt. So yes, shriyasan zui kibusan. We could say that by fabric that has dirt on it. But if you have fabric, said the Ramah in the first opinion here, but if you have a beged she'eino lav lichluch, if you have a beged, if you have fabric that has no dirt on it, so how are you going to say shriyasan zui kibusan? What kind of laundering? It's a clean fabric. How is soaking doing kibus? How is soaking accomplishing laundering if there's nothing to wash out? That was the first opinion brought down by the Ramah. But then the Ramah brought down a yesh oisrim b'chol inyan. The Ramah brought down a second opinion that says that shriyasan zui kibusan even applies by clean fabric. Even by clean fabric, soaking a fabric is part and parcel of laundering, and therefore this opinion said you cannot even soak clean fabric. Now, in Sif Yud, the Mechaber, we're going to go through the Mechaber and the Ramah, and we're going to apply this to some practical cases. Says the Mechaber, Sif Yud, 3 lines off the top, Peites Amid Aleph, final word on the line. Haroichetz yadav. When somebody goes and washes his hands. Now you wash your hands. Now you want to go to a towel and you want to dry your hands. Well, when you take your wet hands and you go to a towel and you dry your hands off on the towel, what you're doing is you're making the towel wet. So you're taking a beged and you are exposing it to water. That is shriya. Now, like I mentioned yesterday, even though that doesn't sound like soaking a towel, when you think about soaking a towel, you think about filling up a basin or a sink with water and then taking a towel and dropping it in, soaking it. I mentioned yesterday that we should not take the word soaking literally. Shriyasan zui kibusan would even apply to just exposing a beged to water. So you go, you wash your hands. Now you want to dry your hand on a towel. So you're exposing a beged to water. Says the Mechaber, Haroichetz Yadav, when somebody washes his hands, Toiv linagvam b'koyach zu bezu, it would be good to dry your hands vigorously, one against the other. Ulahaser mehen hamayim kefi yacholtai, and to remove as much water from your hands as possible, kaidem sheyekanchen b'mapa, before you go ahead and dry your hands on the towel. So in a nutshell, the Mechaber is saying, your hands are wet, you want to dry your hands, you want to expose the beged to water, get as much water off your hands as possible. Now, let's take the rules that we know, and let's apply those rules to this shaila. So let's start with the Day Rishona that we learned in the Ramah yesterday. The Day Rishona in the Ramah said that if you have a clean beged, you have a beged she'ein olav lichluch, there's no dirt on it, there's no stains on it, then we do not say shriyasan zui kibusan. Now, we're assuming for the moment here that when you wash your hands and you go to a towel that's hanging on the towel rod and you want to clean your hands, our assumption is we're dealing with what we would call a clean towel. And this is something that I mentioned yesterday also. A used towel does not mean that it is dirty. Dirty towel means it has dirt on the towel. A used towel is not dirty. It's a used towel. It's clean, but it's used. It's not fresh. But that is not a dirty towel. So the assumption over here is that we're dealing with what we would call a clean towel. It's a beged she'ein olav lichluch. Okay, so now let's do the math. You washed your hands. You want to go take a clean beged she'ein olav lichluch, and expose it to water by drying your hands. According to the Day Rishon, is there any problem with that? No. If you would get the towel soaking wet, we would have to be concerned about the gzeira shema yischait, that you might come to schita, you might come to wring it out. But when you dry your hands on a towel, you're not soaking a towel to the extent that it's going to get so wet that you might wring it out. Also, with a towel, generally speaking by towels, we say that there is no gzeira shema yischait. Towels, people are not so concerned if they're very wet. So schita is not an issue over here. So according to the Day Rishona, this shaila that the Mechaber is presenting over here doesn't seem to be much of a shaila at all, right? You have what we're calling a clean towel, you're exposing it to water, what's the problem? We don't say shriyasan zui kibusan, and there's no schita issue. Remember, we said yesterday that really the implication of the words of the Mechaber in Siftes were that the Mechaber agrees with the Day Rishona. So, at first glance, if we plug in the Day Rishona, we don't even see a shaila over here. Now let's plug in the Day Shniya. The Day Shniya holds that the rule of shriyasan zui kibusan even applies to a clean beged. Okay, so you might be tempted to say, all right, now we have a shaila. You have a clean, it's true that the towel is a clean towel, but now you go and you wipe your hands on it, you're exposing it to water. The Day Shniya says, shriyasan zui kibusan, even by a clean towel. So maybe here we have a problem. Maybe that's why the Mechaber says you should shake the water off your hands. But that also doesn't work. You know why? Because even though, according to the Day Rishona, you still say shriyasan zui kibusan even by a clean towel, but remember another halacha that we learned yesterday. We learned that derech lichluch, if the manner in which you're exposing the beged to water is derech lichluch, it's something that is going to make the beged more dirty as opposed to derech kibus. It's not something that will wash the towel. Then even the Day Shniya says there's nothing wrong with exposing it to water. Now, when you take a towel and you wash your hands and then you want to wipe your hands on the towel, that's derech lichluch. That's how towels get dirty, right? When a towel is used enough, you put it in a laundry hamper and you wash it. Why? Because as you use it to dry your hands, it's getting what we call dirty. So whether you're dealing with the Day Rishona or you're dealing with the Day Shniya, there does not seem to be any reason for the Mechaber to tell us that when you want to dry your hand on a towel, it would be best to get as much water off your hands as possible first. And we'll see right away. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says what I just told you. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut mem test, toiv. If you notice, the lashon of the Mechaber is haroichetz yadav toiv. It would be good. Lenagvam b'koyach zu b'zu. Does he say tzarich? Does he say you have to get water off your hands as much as possible? He doesn't say that. He says toiv. Says the Mishnah Berurah Cut Memtes. Aval midina, ikar hadin, the halacha lamaisa, shari lishtei dayas hanal b'haga l'kanech b'mapa. Whether you're dealing with the day of Rishayna or the day of Shneya, there is no isser involved in going and wiping off your hands on the towel. And I explained to you why. Ukamaisha kasav b'haga, like we learnt yesterday in the Ramah. So there doesn't seem to be any reason to do this. So let's go to Ois Kot Nun. Says the Mishnah Berurah L'nagvam b'kayach. The Mechaber said it would be good to wipe off your hands vigorously. Explains the Chavetz Chaim why. Hu kidei lot says gam das hayesh machmirin shekasavdu l'mayla b'sayf sif kot lamites. If you remember, in the Chavetz Chaim's beautiful Hakdama to Sif Tes and Sif Yud, the Mishnah Berurah gave us 3 shitas. He gave us the day of Rishayna. We don't say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan by clean fabric. He gave us the day of Shneya. You do say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan by clean fabric, but Derech Lichluch is okay. And then he gave us a 3rd shita that's even more machmer. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what is this 3rd shita? The Svira Lahu, they hold the Bechol Gavni Amrin on Shriyasai Zui Kibusai. We always say Shriyasai Zui Kibusai. Whether the fabric is clean, whether the fabric is dirty, whether you do it derech lichluch or you do it derech kibus, it doesn't matter. We always say Shriyasai Zui Kibusai Afshehu derech lichluch. According to this last very machmir shita, drying your hands on the towel could be problematic, because even if it's, so to speak, a clean towel, you're exposing it to water. Shriyasan zui kibusan, even though you're doing it derek lichluch. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, says the Mechaber, wipe your hands off, dry your hands off strenuously first. Ella the imhu ma'at mayim soivim de'em bazem mishum chash kibus. Now you'll ask me, according to this 3rd very machmer opinion, it's very nice the Mechaber says you should dry your hands together as much as you can. What's the difference if you dry them off as much as you can? So long as your hands are wet, how are you allowed to go ahead and wipe your hands on the towel? Explains the Mishnah Berurah that even the 3rd opinion holds that mayim muatim, if you're using very little water. So we've got alamilas over here. We're talking about a clean beged. We're talking about derech lichluch. And you're using very little water. You're just drying your hands off. Even the 3rd opinion that's so machmir, even they are maskim. The imu mayim, if you're using very little water, soivrim de en bazem mishum chash kibus. You can't call it kibus. Ach, mishum de en anu bekiyin eze mikri ma'at. But we don't know. What's the share of a little water? What's the share of a lot water? We don't know. That's why the Mechaber says it would be good. Get as much water off your hands as possible. So again, let's just encapsulate this a little bit. So the Mechaber brought forth the following shaila. It's Shabbos, you washed your hands, you want to go to a towel, you want to wipe off your hands, you're exposing the towel to water. The Mishnah Berurah does the math for us. According to the day of Rishayna, it's a clean towel. There's no problem. We don't say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan, it's mutter. According to the day of Shneya, yes, even by a clean towel we say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan, but what you're doing is derech lichluch. What you're doing is you're getting the towel dirty by wiping your hands. Even the second day, even the day of Shneya holds the derech lichluch is mutter. So day of Rishayna, it's mutter. Day of Shneya, it's mutter. So why does the Mechaber say get the water off your hands first? Because of the day of Shlishis, the 3rd opinion. The 3rd opinion is very machmir. Clean beged, you still say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan. Derech lichluch, you still say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan. Oh, so then why does the Mechaber say get as much water off your hands as possible? So what? You got as much water off your hands as possible, but your hands are still wet. How are you allowed to dry it on the towel? The answer is, even the day of Shlishis, even the 3rd opinion is maskim, that with mayim watim, with very little water, we can't call it kibus. What's called little water? We don't know. So says the Mechaber, you want to be Yoitza Aladeus, strenuously, vigorously, get the water off your hands first, and then go ahead and dry your hands on the towel. That's the Shita of the Mechaber over here. Now let's go to the Ramah. Says the Ramah 4 lines down near the end of the line, Hagah. V'yesha kasvu de'en lachush lozeh. But there are those that write that there is no need to be concerned for this at all. Because we don't say Shriyasan Zui Kibusan in such a case. Why? De'ein zeh rak derech lichluch. Because this is derech lichluch. So what the Ramah is saying over here is, the Mechaber is telling you have to be choishish for the third day. That's so machmir. Says the Ramah Yesha Kasvu that we don't have to worry about the day of Shlishis. The day of Shnia, the second opinion that says that there is Shriyasai, Zui Kibusai, even by a beged that's clean, no, you want to be chayshish for that shita, like the Mishnah Berurah said yesterday, we could see being chayshish for that shita. But even that shita holds that derech lichluch is mutter, and over here what you're doing is derech lichluch. So says the Ramah, there doesn't seem to be any reason to be chayshish for what the Mechaber is saying over here, v'chein noyagin. And the Ramah says that that's taka the minik. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah's cutting on Aleph. Derech lichluch. Over here what you're doing is derech lichluch. Sheyadav miluch lachais, because your hands are dirty. Or metanif behemes hamapa. And when you dry your hands on the towel, you're dirtying the mappa, so to speak. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter. V'davka b'mappa v'kiyoytze behen she'en derech lahakbid al hamayim atfuchim. But this only works when you're dealing with a towel. Why? Because by a towel, you're not makbid how wet it is. But to dry your hands on something other than a towel, to dry your hands on something that during the week, if it would get wet, you would wring it out, that, says the Mishnah Berurah first, might be a problem. Also, mitam sheba yavali de schita. Because then you have to be afraid that you might come to wring it out. You might come to schita. So says the Magen Avram. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, but take a look at the Pri Megadim who rules, the dafka b'mayim merubim. There's only a chash of gzera sheba yischait. There's only a concern that you might come to wring out a garment if you get it seriously wet. But with a little water, that normally comes about from drying hands, there's no room to be chayshish for schita. V'chein pasku el yerabba b'teisefes Shabbos lahakel b'sipak hayadayim ayin sham tamayu. So in a nutshell, the Mechaber brought up this shaila of going ahead and drying your hands on a towel. The Mechaber gave a very big chumrah. He said that you should shake the water off your hands before you dry your hands on the towel to be chayshish for the day of Shlishis. That's very, very machmir. The Ramah came and the Ramah said, no, you don't have to be chayshish for the day of Shlishis. At most, you have to be chayshish for the day of Shnia. The day of Shnia says that even by a clean beged, you could apply the rule of Shriyasai Zui Kibusai. But when you dry your hand on a towel, it's derech lichloch. And even the day of Shnia is maskim that derech lichluch is mutter. The Mishnah Berurah brought down a Magen Avram that has a chumrah, and the Magen Avram said, listen, this is only by a towel. Because by a towel, there's no gzeira shema yischait. But if it's a different kind of fabric, if it's you're drying your hand on a t-shirt, something that during the week, if it got wet, you would wring it out, then there's a problem. We have to be concerned, gzeira shema yischait. Brings down the Mishnah Berurah for the Pri Megadim to Sefer Shabbos Gel Yerabba, that's only when you get something significantly wet. The small amount of wetness that you put into a towel from drying your hands, even if you dry your hands with a beged that normally you would wring out during the week, you're not getting it wet enough by drying your hands, and therefore it wouldn't be a problem. So it comes out over here from the Mishnah Berurah, from the Mechaber, the Ramah, and the Mishnah Berurah that we just learned. Is there any concern with drying your hands on a towel? There's no concern with drying your hands on a towel. You don't have to be careful. You don't have to shake the water off your hand first. You could go to a towel and you could dry off your hands in the normal way. Now, up till this point, we were assuming that the towel is clean. And that was an important factor, an important variable in the math that we did. Because we said, if the towel is clean, so according to the day of Rishona, there's no Shriyasa Zui Kibusan at all. According to the day of Shnia, okay, there's Shriyasa Zui Kibusan, but at the same time, it's Derech Lichloch that it's okay. How about if the towel's dirty? How about if the towel's taka dirty? It's a towel that's hanging on the towel rack, and you notice that there are stains on the towel. There's dirt on the towel. So now the towel is taka dirty. Are you still allowed to dry your hands on that towel? Let's do the math. When you do the math, you would say, well, if the towel is dirty, so then everybody, the day of Rishona, the day of Shnia, everybody is maskim that if the towel is dirty, you say Shriyasan Zui Kibusan, so then you might think, wait a second, then I taka can't dry my hands if the towel is dirty, right? So maybe now on Shabbos, I got to keep checking my towels, and I got to make sure that my towels are clean. And if I see that my towel is dirty, I got to throw it in the laundry and get a new towel. Take a look at the Bir Halacha. Says the Bir Halacha Dibra Maschil Deloy Amrina. Va'afilu im haya eza lichloch ala hamitpachas. Even if there's some dirt on the towel, shari, it's still mutter to dry your hands. Why? Explains the Chavetz Chaim. Hayil v'haniguv derech lichlochu. Very interesting. The big chiddush. It's why I'm pointing out this Bir Halacha. Big chiddush, but it's a very important thing it's a very important yediyah that we have to know learning these halachas. What the Chavetz Chaim is saying over here is that the heter of derech lichloch even applies by something that has dirt on it. And he brings this down for the Pri Megadim, and the explanation of it is that it is very... Okay, camera's working. It buzzed out there for a minute, but it seems to be working. The explanation of it would seem to be that you simply cannot call derech lichloch kibus. And think about it. It makes a lot of sense, right? What is kibus? Kibus is laundering. Kibus is washing something. Now, if what you're doing is derech lichloch, if the action that you're doing is actually going to make the item that you're using more dirty than it was before, how could you call that kibus? So let's go back to our case. You want to go dry your hands with a towel. Now, we consider drying your hands with a towel an act that is going to make the towel more dirty than it was before. So it's very nice. There's a stain on the towel. So now you want to say, oh, there's lichloch on the towel. When you go to dry your hands, you're getting the towel wet. Shriyasan zui kibusan. So it should be aser. Says the Bir Halacha over here from the Pri Megadim. No, it's derech lichloch. The action that you are about to perform, drying your hands on this towel, is not going to aid in cleansing the towel. It's actually going to make the towel more dirty. So how could you say that? How could you say it's kibus? It's not kibus. And therefore, it rules the Bir Halacha over here that even if the towel has dirt on it, it still would be mutter to dry your hands on that towel because it is derech lichloch. Now, let's finish the Mishnah Berurah that we were in the middle of, and then I want to point out something else from this Bir Halacha. We're in this Mishnah Berurah is cut on Aleph, near the end, the word aval, says the Chavetz Chaim. Till now, we were talking about drying your hands on a towel. Aval, says the Chavetz Chaim, in nishpach mayim al hashulchan v'kiyotzebay. If there's a significant spill of water on the table, somebody knocked over a pitcher of water, or on the floor, lekule alma asal lekanche bebeged shemakpid alav imhu mayim merubim shemiyava lidei schita. You remember, I brought up this shaila either yesterday or the day before. If you have to wipe up a significant spill, well, it depends. If you're using a towel, so then we're not concerned that you might come to schita, because you're not makpid on how wet the towel is. But if you don't have a towel handy, and you want to use a shirt, you want to use something that normally, if it was very wet, you would wring it out, that would taka be a problem because of the gzeira shema yischait. Now, I don't want to take the time to go through the Bir Halacha inside, but in this same Bir Halacha that I just quoted from, Bir Halacha Dibra Baskil Deloy Amrinan, The Bir Halacha says something interesting that pertains to another shaila that I brought up either yesterday or the day before, and that was the question of making a hot compress for a chayla. And I spoke about perhaps making the water dirty so that when you take the clean fabric and you put it in the hot water, it should be considered derech lichloch. The truth is that I see that the Chavetz Chaim tackles that question over here in the Bir Halacha, and he comes up with an interesting thing. He says, even if you take a clean towel and you put it into clean water, so now you're tempted to say Shriyasai Zui Kibusai, at least according to the Day Shnia. He says, but you have to understand that shriya, that soaking that you're going to do by putting the water in, why are you doing it? He says, you're doing that, let me find it here. Af ledas hayesh oisrin af benikim. Even according to the Day Shnia, that holds that you say shriyasan zui kibusan by clean fabric, efshir de derech lichlachu. I said when I brought up the shaila that if you take a clean washcloth or you take a clean fabric gauze pad and you put it into clean water, l'chayra, according to the Day Shnia, you have a problem. Because you're taking a clean baggage, you're putting it into clean water, so if it's clean water, it's not derech lichloch. And according to the Day Shnia, since it's clean fabric, you still say Shriyasa Zui Kibusan, so l'chayra it's a problem. And the Mishnah Berurah yesterday told us that we should be chayshish for the Day Shnia. Says the Bir Halacha, this is still called derech lichloch. I think the reason he's saying that you could say that it's still derech lichloch is because you're using the towel. Your use of the towel is going to end up having the towel more soiled at the end. I think that's what he means. But the important part that I want to point out is a little bit further. He says like this: even if it's not derech lichloch, if you take a clean washcloth and you soak it in hot water in order to make a hot compress, you zicha don't have any kavana for kibus. It's clean. You're using a clean washcloth. Why would you have kavana to launder the washcloth? It's clean. So you zicha don't have any kavana. So again, even according to the Day Shnia, the Day Shnia says a big chiddush. The Day Shnia says even when you have a clean cloth, when you soak it, you still apply the rule of shriyasan zui kibusan. Okay, fine. But says the Chavetz Chaim, you zicha don't have kavana for kibus. Now, why does that matter? Tell you why it matters. Because if you're making a hot compress, right? You take a clean washcloth, you put it in clean water, right? You have no kavana for kibus. What's your kavana? Your kavana is to make the washcloth hot so you can use it as a hot compress, right? This is what we call a davar she'eino miskaven. Whatever kibus would possibly happen is a davar she'eino miskaven. You certainly don't have kavana for it. Okay, davar she'eino miskaven is an issa d'Rabbanan. If it's an issa d'Rabbanan and you're doing it for a chayla, babakum chayla like goes Rabbanan. There is no d'Rabbanan on the chayla, even if it's a chayla she'ein by sakana. The case that the Bir Halacha, the Chavetz Chaim is talking about the Bir Halacha, is somebody wants to give a baby a bath. And he takes a washcloth, it sounds like you're taking a towel, and you're putting it in the bottom of the basin for the baby to lay on so that the baby doesn't slip around. So, l'chayra, you have clean water in the bath, you're putting the towel into clean water. According to the Day Shnia, you should say shriyasan zui kibusan, and it should be aser. Says the Chavetz Chaim, not so fast. First of all, eventually the water is going to get dirty from the baby, so it's going to be derech lichloch. But second of all, even if it's not derech lichloch, says the Bir Halacha, you have no kavana to wash that towel. Your kavana is to help bathe the baby. You have no kavana to clean the towel. So whatever kibus happens is a davar she'eino miskaven. A baby is considered a chayla she'ein by sakana, but makom chayli like goes Rabbanan. There's no issa d'Rabbanan. So the same thing, l'chayra, the same math would play out by a hot compress, even for a chayla she'ein by sakana. Okay, let's move on. Now we go back to the Ramah, 2 lines off the bottom, Pei Tes Amud Aleph, middle of the line. V'lochein, therefore, based on everything that we're learning here, Mutter l'nagev yodav bebeged shehitul boy tinuk mei raglayim kidei levatlam. Okay, what does this mean? The case that the Mishnah Berurah seems to the Ramah. The case that the Ramah seems to be addressing over here is, mommy is holding a baby. Now, the baby is dressed, but this goes back to the day when they were using cloth diapers. Okay? Mommy is holding the baby, and the baby makes meraglayim. The baby urinates. Okay. The meraglayim sometimes has a tendency to soak through the cloth diaper that the baby is wearing. And now mommy gets some meraglayim on her beged. Now that's a problem, because if you have meraglayim on a beged, now you have a problem making a bracha, you have a problem saying a davar shebekdusha, right? You could have a problem benching over there next to this meraglayim. So what do you want to do? You want to be mevatel the meraglayim. What does that mean? We learned halacha back in the days of Chelik Aleph. We were learning Hilchas Kriya Shema. We learned Hilchas Tzoya. And over there we learned that when you have meraglayim in a keli, you could be mevatel it. You could nullify it by diluting it with clean water. Oh, so what this person wants to do is like this. This person got a little meraglayim from a baby on their beged. So now they want to take clean water and pour it onto the beged, not to clean the beged, in order to be mevatel, in order to nullify the meraglayim that's on the beged. That's the case that the Ramah is talking about. Says the Ramah, v'lochein, mutter l'nagev yodav bebeged. I'm sorry. I said that they want to pour water on the beged to be mevatel the meraglayim. No, they don't want to pour water on the beged. That's the next case. That's much more chomer. What they want to do in this case is they want to wash their hands. Now they have clean water on their hands. Now they want to go wipe their hands on the beged in order to make the beged wet with clean water and use the water that was on their hands in order to be mevatel the meraglayim. Says the Ramah, v'lachein mutter l'nagev yodav bebeged shehitul b'tinik meraglayim kidei levatlam. It would be mutter to go ahead and do that. You could wash your hands, now wipe your hands in the beged so that the clean water from your hands will go onto the beged and be mevatel the meraglayim that was on the beged. Says the Mishnah Berurah, cut nun beis, l'nagev yodav, shenoitel yodav b'mayim, u'menagvam b'beged. You're going to wash your hands with water and then dry them on the beged. Ois cut nun gimel, meraglayim. So first of all, let's just do the math over here. What the Ramah is saying is, let's remind ourselves. The Ramah just said that to wash your hands, the previous Ramah, the beginning of the Ramah said to wash your hands and then go dry your hands off on a towel. There's no issue of shriyasan zui kibusan. Why? Because when you dry your hands off on the towel, that's called derech lichluch. And since it's derech lichluch, there's no concern of shriyasan zui kibusan. Okay, so now the Ramah is applying this to another case. A beged got urine on it. You want to be mevatel the urine, so you'll wash your hands with clean water, and now go wipe your hands on the beged that had the urine in it. The clean water from your hands will go onto the beged, and it will be mevatel the meraglayim that was on the beged. Okay, it's derech lichluch. We're not going to say shriyasan zui kibusan, and it's okay. That's the halacha that the Ramah says. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cutting on Gimel. Once we're on the topic of meraglayim, or tzaya, excrement, points out the Mishnah Berurah, cutting on Gimel, meraglayim. This works by meraglayim. Aval kishiyeshel of tzaya. But if there's actual excrement on a beged, could you do the same thing? The baby got a little excrement on somebody's beged. Could you go wash your hands and then go wipe your hands on the beged that has the excrement on it in order to remove the excrement? Says the Mishnah Berurah, absolutely not. If there's actual tzaya on a beged, you wouldn't be allowed to go do this. You wouldn't be allowed to wash your hands and then wipe your wet hands on the beged in order to take off the tzaya. Even though it's true that what you're doing is derech lichluch, but you're absolutely doing kibus. In other words, it's very nice that we're willing to say that when you wash your hands and now you dry your hands on a towel, that's called derech lichluch. That's called dirtying the towel. But now let's apply this to this case. A baby got a small amount of tzaya on somebody's beged. So you're going to go wash your hands and now dry your hands on the beged and remove the tzaya. You want to call that derech lichluch? You're actually cleaning the beged. You're removing tzaya from the beged. You're making it cleaner than it was before. Says the Mishnah Berurah, obviously that would be asur. Masha'ekein meraglayim ein moas kolkach. By meraglayim, it's true that you're being mevatel the meraglayim, but the meraglayim is not dirt. You're not cleaning the beged. Halachically, you're being mevatel the meraglayim. V'gam sham ein matirin el mishum de kavanase rak kedei levatelon v'lo lekabes l'olabed habeged. Even by the case of the meraglayim, points out the Mishnah Berurah. If your kavana is to clean the beged, then you're not allowed to do that. We learned that earlier in Ois Katan Mem Vav. If your kavana is to clean a beged, then all of this math goes out the window. Right? You want to go wash your hands and dry your hands on a towel in order to clean the towel. We're not going to say, it's derech lichluch, it's mutter. If your kavana is kibus, then it's kibus. So too over here by meraglayim. Kol zman, your kavana is halachically to be mevatel the meraglayim, that's okay. But if your kavana is to clean the beged from the meraglayim, that would be asur. It's got nun daled. What you're trying to do over here is be mevatel the meraglayim. Explains the Mishnah Berurah v'sucha lehispalel ulevarich. What you're trying to accomplish over here is to halachically be mevatel the meraglayim, so you could daven and make a bracha. Ukegoincha meraglayim mu'atim. We're talking about a case where there's a very small amount of meraglayim. Kamoisha derech atinak lahatel bebegadav shemu'utav boy. The type of meraglayim that when you have a baby produces meraglayim and he wets the garments that he's wrapped in. When we're worried about a baby soaking through and getting mommy or tati dirty from meraglayim, getting them wet from meraglayim, it's a very small amount of meraglayim. So that it would be enough wetness. You would accomplish being mevatel that amount of meraglayim just by drying your wet hands on that beged. Where the Mishnah Berurah tells us that when you have a very small amount of meraglayim, you can be mevatel it beroiv. Okay, let's see the Ramah weiter. Bottom line, near the end of the line. Aval also litain mayim mamish ala meraglayim kedei levatlam. This is what I alluded to when I first started explaining this case. Says the Ramah. But what if you have a beged that got some meraglayim on it, and now you want to take a pitcher of water, and you want to actually pour water onto the beged in order to be mevatel the meraglayim? That you certainly cannot do. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting on hay back on Peites Amud Aleph, Mayim Mamish, to pour water actually straight onto the beged, that you certainly cannot do. Because that would Mamish be Shriyasa Zui Kibusan. Now you're pouring a significant amount of water over there, that you cannot do. Va'afilu lital yadav aleim. Even you want to do a kunz. What you want to do is, like, first of all, to pour water on the beged, that's not derech lichluch. That's why you certainly would say Shriyasan Zui Kibusan, right? Well, the first case that we spoke about is you have a beged, it got some meraglayim on it. What you want to do is wash your hands, wipe your hands on the beged, make the beged wet with fresh water to be mevatel the meraglayim. That Ramah says you could do because that's called derech lichluch. You're wiping your hands on the beged. The second case is you have meraglayim on the beged, you want to pour water on it. That's not derech lichluch. That's derech kibus. So that would certainly be asur. That's Shriyasa Zui Kibusan. That's absolutely asur. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah like this. How about if you want to try another kunz? You want to pour water on it, but you want to come up with a way to pour water on it that should be called derech lichloch. How are you going to do that? Va'afil litel yodav aleihem. What you want to do is you want to put the beged down. Now you want to take your negavasser cup and you want to pour water on your hands and then allow the water to flow off your hands onto the beged. So now you want to argue that that's derech lichloch. Why is it derech lichloch? Because first the water went onto my hands. Now the water is running off my hands. It's not clean water anymore. Right? It's not clean water. It went through my hands. So now you want to say that that's derech lichloch. Says the Mishnah, you can't do that. After nasim shoifchem, even though by washing your hands in the water, you're turning that water into what we call shoifchem, wastewater, right? You are turning it into wastewater. But there's no dirt in that water. The water's not really dirty. So that's water that is roy to use for laundering. Even though you certainly don't have kavod to do kibus, you just want to be mavatal l'meraglayim, mikamakim sikreishahu, and this would be aser. The shriasai zehu kibusai. V'lachein. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, Toiv shaloi likach tinoik b'cheikoi b'shabes im loy alkar pen yashtin. Very interesting. The Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Sefer Chasidim, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, that when you hold a baby on your lap, you should put a towel or some kind of cushion interposing between the baby and you, so that you don't come up with this shaila, that the baby is going to soil you, and then you might come to all of these shailas. Nowadays we have disposable diapers that are pretty leak-proof. V'hinei, continues the Mishnah Berurah, L'fi ha'mavur b'sifim elu, according to what we've seen in these seifim, the beged sheyesh bo lichlach l'kuli alma shriasai zehu kibusai, that everybody, the day Rishona, the day Shnia, everybody agrees that when you have fabric that has a stain on it or has dirt on it, we definitely apply the rule of Shriyasai Zehu Kibusai. Sarach Lizar, we have to take care. Somebody, you have Kanain Hara, you have a big Shabbos Suda in your house on Shabbos, and there's a long line to wash by the kitchen sink. So somebody wants to jump into the laundry room, and he wants to wash until Yadayim in the laundry room. And in the slop sink in the laundry room, there's a basin that has some clothing soaking in it from before Shabbos. Now he wants to wash, and he wants to get water into that basin where the clothing is soaking. Shriyasan zui kibusan. You can't do that. Unless all the clothing that's soaking is already fully covered in water. If this clothing that's soaking is fully covered in water, so then any water that you add isn't accomplishing anything. Certainly you're not allowed to immerse a beged into water on Shabbos. That's Shriyasan Zui Kibusan 101. V'lachein, therefore, very interesting, v'lachein, therefore, haroichetz tinoik, when somebody is washing off a baby, lo yasim bigadav b'mayim, you have to remember not to take the baby's garment and put the baby's garment into the water. V'ayin mashakasavnu b'biur halacha. Okay? One more, Mishnah Berurah is cut memvav, hamei raglayim, you wouldn't be allowed to wash your hands over a beged so that the water should flow down onto the beged that has the meraglayim on it to be mavatal the meraglayim. Sheba beged, we're talking about being mavatal the meraglayim that's absorbed in the beged. Aval sheba oretz mutter, but to pour water onto the ground to be mavatal meraglayim, that would be mutter. We're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Schus limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. Ramarshim should said Yeshua's refuahs parnasim shidduchim tol those indeed. We should be zeichet to see the BS Gal Tzedek. Memher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.